Hi everyone, welcome to the Woolen Spinning Podcast. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as Well for Pearls. Show notes for this episode can be found at wellforpearls.com, and if you would like to join the conversation, please head over to the Ravelry group, the Woolen Spinning Podcast. It's a really active group and people are really chatty, which is wonderful. So if there's anything that you're wondering about when it comes to your spinning, if there's anything that you've got questions about, please head over and join in, because the group is just incredibly helpful. They seem to have a really high zest for learning, and it's just been really wonderful. So thank you to those of you who've been active thus far, and thank you to those who want to get involved. In the introductions thread, you will notice that the thread is locked as of this week. I have drawn a name for the giveaway for the 1-year subscription of Ply Magazine, and that will be coming up at the end of the show. The other big thing that's going on is the Fuzzy Love Knots giveaway. It's for 3 patterns of Nina's from Nina's Ravelry store. That's going on in the group, so please head over and share what you like to do in the summer when it comes to your spinning. Maybe it's knitting with your hand spun, maybe it's fiber prep, maybe it's just carrying on like normal. And for those of you who are participating in the Zero to Hero spackle, there is some giveaway stuff going on in there as well. Maya wanted to pay it forward with a pattern, and Nina, I've saved one of the patterns from Nina for in there as well. So I think that's it for housekeeping. I kind of wanted to blast through that and get on with the show. Sorry for the interruption so early in the show. My mom helps me with the kids usually once a week for a couple of hours, and it just gives me a chance to get stuff done. So usually I have work to work on since I've been teaching, and I've been doing, I usually need a little bit of time to prep for class on Thursdays, but I actually got my stuff done for this week, this past weekend, so I had an opportunity to record today, which is great, but the kids still, they know I'm here. Okay, so I have handspun knitting today to show you, which is actually finished. I can't believe it. I have a big handspun project that I'm still working on. I have not put in any time in my succulents shawl at all. I kind of got waylaid because I have a lot on my needles right now, and I just needed to get something done. So I focused on just one project, and I did get it off the needles. And then I also have some finished skeins of yarn. I don't have anything on my wheels right now other than that superwash sock that I have been working on. So I left that downstairs on the Hants and I didn't drag it up here. And I also haven't done any more on my Falkland. I have Guild tonight, and I'm kind of thinking that I might take it with me, but we have quite an interesting presentation coming tonight, and I want to be able to concentrate. So I may actually take something that I've been knitting on that's just vanilla, just to keep working on it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And I've also been doing some fiber prep, so I will show you what I've been working on. So the first thing that I have to show you is actually a finished object, and I very rarely show finished knitting, so this is pretty exciting. These are my Cheviot socks. They turned out really, really well. I actually ended up with 68 yards left, and I have already reskeined it and put it, I have a Ziploc bag, and I've been collecting all of my hand spun ends of my sock yarn. And my plan is eventually I'll do a pair of scrappy socks. So right now I have in the bag some superwash BFL from Sweet Georgia Yarns in the Hummingbird colorway. I have some Smith & You and superwash BFL in those purples and teals and whatnot. And now I've added my Cheviot. And I also have some sock yarn that was for my husband that is in that bag as well. The socks that he felted is in there. So I used the Fish Lips Kiss Heel for these socks. Very straightforward. I knit a 26, so a 52 stitch leg on my socks. My feet are quite small. I've said that before, but it does make the foot of my socks go quite a bit faster. And then what I did with these, which is a little bit different from how I normally knit socks, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but I actually increased here. I put 2 extra stitches on the top of the socks, not on the heel side, but I only increased on one side. I magic loop, so I added them to make my stitch count go from 26 up to 30 for the top portion of the sock. And then I knit, I had 70 rows for my foot, and so I did 70 rows for the leg, which is longer than I normally do. I usually stop my legs around here, but I wanted to use up as much of the yarn as I could, so I went higher, and then I did 20 rows of 1x1 ribbing, which is also something that I don't normally do, because I usually do 2x2, but I wanted to see if the 1x1 was a bit tighter. A dog hair. So my big thing with the Cheviot socks was whether or not these would be able to go in the washing machine. So I was going to knit a separate swatch, and I was going to throw that in the washing machine, and then, because I didn't want to throw these in the wash and then have something happen to them. But somebody in the group, and I feel, I don't want to guess. I can see your avatar in my mind, and I can't think of your name, your first name. But she had really good results with throwing her Cheviot socks in the washing machine. So I took a leap of faith. I put them in by themselves, and I put them in a warm water wash with a warm water rinse, and they're perfect. They came out absolutely perfectly. They didn't fuzz up anymore. They didn't change in any noticeable way. That's a bit truer to color. The camera's really blowing out the purple. They're looking really blue to you guys, but they're actually really purple. And so these are going to be able to be machine washed, no problem. I would not put them in a hot water wash with a cold water rinse, personally. I think you're asking for trouble when you do that, but warm water wash, warm water rinse with agitation, no problem. They came out, they actually, if anything, it evened out my stitching. It made the fabric more even. And they didn't fuzz up any more noticeably than when I finished knitting them, because the Cheviot is a bit fuzzier, probably with where they're going to fuzz up, particularly on the bottom. So success, an alternative to superwash wool for me. So I was really happy about that. So those are done, and like I said, I used the Fish Lips Kiss Heel for those and a Turkish cast on for the toe, and knit my way up. That's really great. The next hand spun knitting, I am still working on my big vanilla shawl that I've been knitting with my very dear friend. This is the skein of yarn that I'm supposed to have balled up so that I can keep working on it. I did not get to finishing this off from last time, so that is still the same. And the shawl is still at the same point. So I'm hoping that there's something on my needles right now that I have to finish. Sorry about that. That was a pen. Just hit the wall and then the ground. There's a yarn review that I'm working on right now, and so I'm working on that exclusively until it's done, and so this will get picked up as soon as that's finished, and then after this is done, then I'll finish my succulent shawl. So I'm not going to cast anything else on until at least one of those two projects is done, either this or my succulent shawl. So that's it for handspun knitting. It's not really very interesting in terms of like what's in progress, and like I said, I haven't worked on my succulent shawl. Finished skeins. I skeined up my core spun and I washed it. So this is what it ended up looking like. I'm really happy with it. It had quite a bit of twist in it, and thankfully that did sort of even out in the wash. There are some points like over here where you can see that some of that twist has not come out. Core spun is not really a singles yarn because your core is whatever it is. So the core of this is a 2-ply, but the finished yarn acts like a singles because you don't have anything, you're not plying it. So it acts like a singles in the sense that it's very difficult to balance your twist if you put too much twist in. I spun this at 5:1 on my jumbo flyer on the Lendrum, and actually I am going to get, just let me click around here, sorry for the clicking. I am going to get the stats on this because I was quite surprised what it ended up being, and I haven't written it down. I've written it down somewhere else. It's something like 180 yards, I think, and it's like 180 grams or something. It might even be 215 grams. It's quite heavy. It's quite substantial. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. And it was a bat, 2 bats actually, 2 2-ounce bats that I spun, that I had made back almost a year ago actually. I'm just really happy with how that turned out. The Firestar isn't perfectly blended. There are parts where I wrapped, like I said last time, where I wrapped when I was wrapping the fiber, all I was wrapping was Firestar. I mean, I'm just trying to find a section where that happened. This is the section. And it's still got a lot of twist in it. So you can see I was kind of fighting with the Firestar to get it to wrap. And so there's quite a bit of twist in it. So that's some of those sections where it's just Firestar that was wrapped. You can see like it's all over here too. It's quite a big section. So note to self for future, make sure that your Firestar is really well blended in your bats if you're going to do coarse spun yarn. And there's still quite a bit of twist in there. I mean, you can see sort of what that looks like. Come on. I've got beautiful light right now, actually. So I think that that's why I wanted to take advantage and podcast. Sometimes when I podcast, and unlike the dining room where I used to podcast from, sometimes the light up here isn't great because I've only got really tiny windows. But in terms of keeping my stuff safe from the kids, it's better to be up here. So you can see all that twist in there. So some of that washed out in the bath when I washed the yarn, and some of it didn't. So I might send it for another swim. I'm not sure, but that's how it turned out. So this is actually for a gallery show that our guild is putting on in 2017. So I have lots of time to do something with it, and I am going to knit up a bit of a swatch with it and see how it behaves in a knitted swatch. And actually there's part of me that kind of wants to knit something with it just to kind of see what it would do. So I might do that. We'll see. So that's that yarn done. And then the other yarn that I finished was some more singles. And if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen this. This is Bourbon by Sweet Georgia Yarns. This is a discontinued colorway. But as you can see with the tealy blue and the ochre yellow and the cream and the gray, it was made for me. It's my absolute most favorite colors. I wear these colors all the time. And I spun this as a singles. So I spun this over the course of about 2 nights. It took me about 2 hours of straight spinning at the wheel to finish it. And I spun it at 5-to-1 on my jumbo flyer on the Lendrum. And I tried to keep my drafting really consistent. So I was doing a short forward draft about 1.5 to 2 inches and smoothing the fibers back. And I just kept doing that over and over again. And I stripped the braid into 6, and I did pre-draft because it was quite compressed. It had been in my fiber stash for about 2 years. Maybe 1.5 years. I can't remember when Bourbon came out. It was only a colorway for about 1 year because the blue, they had problems with bleeding. I'd kind of like to get some more, and I talked to one of the people at Sweet Georgia about maybe getting some more, and they said that they would dye some more for me. Just be aware of the issues with blue, which, you know, I mean, that's one of the problems with dyeing with blue, when you need that much dye to create those beautiful colors. But I have roughly 330 yards, and this is 115 grams. And I would kind of like one more to have enough for a shawl. But I am worried that the colors might be slightly different, so I'm not sure what to do. But this was on Polworth and Silk, which is one of my favorite bases to spin. And then I fold it. So I filled up a bucket of steaming hot water, and then I filled up a bucket of ice water. And I put it in the hot water, kind of moved it around to get it really saturated. And then I pulled it out, put it in the cold, moved it around to get it really, really cooled down. And I just kept doing that. I think I put them each in both buckets like 3 or 4 times and moved them around while they were in there. I didn't like really agitate and do that in there in the buckets, mostly because I didn't want to wreck the skein, but I did swirl it around and kind of gently move it around, and it is fulled quite nicely. There's parts in the skein that don't really have a lot of twist, and yet it's not falling apart. So you can see how low twist that is, and yet it's not falling apart, and it's because it's sort of, it's fulled. It's not felted. Felted would be like one giant mess of fiber. Fold is where the scales of the wool have opened up and they've latched onto each other. So if you were to pull this apart, it wouldn't be like really lovely fiber anymore. Whereas if you took the twist out of yarn that's not fulled or superwash, it would still be, if you once you take the twist out, it'll still fall apart. But with this, you can't. It's sort of stuck together. So I'm thinking a shawl, and I might actually, I have some, I can't remember what the colorway is, but it's very similar to the gray that's in here in my stash. And I might actually do the same, and it's on Polworth and Silk as well. It's old stash, like 3 years. I might do the same thing and spin up some singles of that as well, and then do a striping shawl, and then just make the yardage go longer. It would just make a bigger shawl. So I'm really happy with that. Went really, really, really quickly. I love spinning singles. And I actually will be writing a blog post that'll come out at the beginning of March about how I spin my singles and what I do and some tips and tricks. And there will also be a guest post that I've written for Sweet Georgia Yarns at the end of the month because of the club reveal that was this month, which I'm going to talk about next. And it'll give you some tips around spinning singles. My big tip is just slow down. If you're drafting, if you're drafting once forward, your feet shouldn't be going more than one full revolution to get that drive wheel to go around once on a very low ratio if you want soft spun, low twist singles. So when I used to make singles when I was first learning, I would be on ratios of like 12 to 1, 8 to 1, 16 to 1. They're just too high for the type of singles that I wanted to spin. So I halved that and went down to 4 to 1 and 5 to 1. And I've really liked my results ever since. So watch for those blog posts upcoming, and I'll give you some tips and tricks for spinning singles. The last thing that I'm going to talk about, this is a really short show today. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was the Sweet Georgia Yarns Club reveal. So for those of you who aren't interested, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. And if you're interested in the giveaway, that's in the last few seconds of the episode, so you can just fast forward to the end. But the club reveal this month was Superwash Targhee, which we had in September, which was really kind of neat to see it again because it was really received quite well. It's on called The Big Leap, and it was the February 2016 Fiber Club. So Superwash Targhee, Felicia wrote, like many new mothers, I couldn't imagine how much my life would change when our first baby arrived just over 2 years ago. Despite the knowledge that I'm fortunate enough to be blessed with a second, I fear and even feel guilty that I might not have it in me to love another baby as much as the first. Trust me, Felicia, you will. And if anything, you actually love your kids even more. So that's where the big leap comes in, to jump into this next adventure that is at once familiar and yet very fragile. To believe that my heart will not split in two, but in fact become twice as big, if not 4 times as big, I promise. So Felicia wrote a very heartfelt, it was very heartfelt this month, and actually reading it, I did tear up because I remember having those feelings while I was pregnant. Targhee is a breed that is a combination of Rambouillet, Columbia, Lincoln, and Corriedale. And it tends to be a little teeny tiny bit higher in micron count, so 23 to 24, but its staple length is longer than Merino. It's very springy, very spongy. It tends to have a matte finish. I've never seen Targhee mixed with silk, which I wonder if that's something that maybe just hasn't been done yet, or I just haven't seen it, because Targhee with silk would be amazing. And for spinning thoughts, she wrote that Targhee is often spun as a traditional 3-ply for sock yarn, which we did back in September. And actually Vicky, Knitwit Vic, she just finished this month's Fiber Club, and she did that. She spun socks. So if you're interested in seeing what she did, head over to the Ravelry group, because in the hand spun socks thread, she's posted a photo and they are beautiful. But so for this time, because of the color, which I'll show you in a moment, we decided on spinning soft, thick woolen singles, or even better, try a slub yarn. I didn't want to do a slub yarn because I know exactly what I'm going to do with this skein of yarn. I'm going to pause it here, and you can, oh, and I showed you last time, before I do that, I showed you my samples last time that I carded up on the drum carder, and that I had been playing with. So that was the color, but it was all carded up and it was all mixed together. And I'm hoping that from back here you'll have, no, it's still showing up as 2 blue. So I'm going to pause it here, and I'll insert some photos of what the colorway looked like and a shot of the yarn, and then I'll come back and chat about it. So it was really vibrant this month and really bright, and this is what the finished yarn ended up looking like. I'm really happy with it. Unfortunately, the light isn't really showing off the coral very well, which is in here, but that's actually pretty true to color. I'm going to stay away from the camera and you can maybe see a bit better. There's a lot of blue in here, but really it's purple. And the singles that I spun, I only divided the braid. Did I divide it 3 times or 4 times? I can't remember, but I just love these thick spun singles. And this is actually why this skein of yarn is actually the reason why I spun the bourbon last weekend. I just was really craving another single spin after being so happy with how this turned out. And you can see that my singles are a little bit thicker. I only got 280 yards because they're quite thick. They're a sport weight, whereas my bourbon singles were heavy fingering. And this is 1,100 yards per pound, and the other one is 1,500 yards per pound. So that kind of puts it in perspective in terms of the thickness and how much fiber was used. But I'm just really happy with the consistency of how this turned out. And I'm looking forward to knitting with it. I actually know what I'm going to do. And I'm just charting it out right now, and then I'll cast on for huge, oversized, big needles to make a really loose fabric shawl. And I'm really hoping that by using a slipped stitch that it'll really show off the yarn really well, and that I'll have yeah, just a really lovely effect of the slip stitches. The only thing that I will say is superwash is not my favorite to spin for singles. It's easy to spin and keep consistent, but I was really worried, hence the sampling, that it would fall apart. And I think Targhee in superwash for me worked really well, and I would absolutely do it again. But I've had really bad luck with superwash BFL, and it does make me weary when I see singles as in superwash fiber. So if you're going to spin singles and you want to have guaranteed success, use a 100% wool for your first time so that you can full it and not risk it falling apart, especially if you're trying not to put a lot of twist in and you're worried that it's going to fall apart. However, this worked out and turned out beautifully, and I'm really happy with it. So spun on 5-to-1 on my jumbo flyer on the Lendrum, and I actually kind of wish I had seconds this month because I would like to have more so that I can knit an even bigger shawl. Even though these aren't really my colors, it'll probably end up being something for Nora. So yeah, I was really happy with that. So I'm looking forward to March too. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited to see, because she'll have had baby, and I wonder if she has designed the colors before she had baby or after, and I wonder if that'll inform what the colors are. So that's it for today. I am gonna briefly pause here, throw in a couple of photos. Oh, I have fiber prep to show you. I've been working on some stuff for the guild. I've been making these little nests of fiber, excuse the crinkling. So I have my core yarn in here for everyone, and I've been making bats like crazy and dividing them up so that everybody will get 3 bumps of fiber. And we are in March, we're going to do a big core spun demo. So I'm really excited about that. And so I'll insert some photos and some video of what that's been like to create those. And then I'll be back with the draw for the 1-year subscription to Ply Magazine. Hi everyone. So I did the draw for the 1-year giveaway for Ply Magazine. I did from number 2 all the way up to number 198. That's amazing that we had almost 200 introductions in the group. That's really amazing. And so random number generator picked result number 66, which is Mary Jo, or MJM, on Ravelry. So Mary Jo, if you could get in touch with me, many congratulations, and I will send off, I need your email address and your full name to send to Ply Magazine, and then you will hear from Jessica of Ply Magazine, and you guys can get all that set up for your 1-year subscription. So I think you can expect 4 episodes in the mail, and that's really wonderful. So congratulations to Mary Jo. I am going to say goodbye because we just got back from snowshoeing. It's Sunday afternoon here, and I need to have a shower. My hair's a complete mess from being in my toque all morning. Nora's here. She's just been crying a little bit because she's down. She's had a bit of a rough afternoon coming home. She's really tired. So we're gonna have dinner, and I'm hoping that we're gonna have a really quiet evening and a quiet week. So until next time, I hope everybody is really doing well, and happy spinning and happy knitting, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.